What happens when an elected official sworn to protect American citizens does the unthinkable? When someone entrusted with power and privilege uses it to advocate for the very monsters terrorizing our communities. Well, tonight we expose a scandal so outrageous it defies comprehension. A United States senator caught in a compromising international escapade that has sparked bipartisan outrage. Who funded this disgraceful trip? What was caught on camera that the mainstream media refuses to show you? And how did the president of a foreign nation blatantly outmaneuver this politician on the world stage? The photographic evidence and paper trail we've obtained tell a story of betrayal that will make your blood boil. And while Senator Van Hollen sips margaritas with MS-13 gang members, American families are suffering from real pain of border violence. If you're one of the countless victims dealing with physical pain too, listen up. Before reaching for another painkiller, discover the turmeric hack that's 200 times more powerful than standard turmeric extract. When patients of a leading pain doctor tried this formula, it attacked pain at its source, just like we need to attack the border crisis at its source. No more ineffective solutions that mask the problem. Watch the eye-opening video at goldenrevive.com/NNN to reclaim your life. It's linked below. So the deep state Democrats have been exposed. Liberal senator traveling to El Salvador on your dime to sip margaritas with MS-13 gang members while ignoring American victims. The globalist agenda revealed as Trump fights to protect you. The media won't show you this. American hero speaking the truth. Karoline Leavitt destroys Democrats on Easter Sunday for defending an illegal alien MS-13 gang member.
He is an illegal alien, a foreign terrorist, and a criminal MS-13 gang member who violated our country's laws by coming here in the first place. And shame on Senator Chris Van Hollen and the entire Democrat Party, who wasted Easter Sunday going on every television show in the country to advocate for the return of an illegal criminal gang member. There is a litany of evidence proving this individual's ties to MS-13 that has been confirmed in 2 different courts. There have been multiple law enforcement officers who have affirmed his MS-13 gang affiliation, and this is who the Democrat Party is advocating for. It is ridiculous. The president, this White House, the entire administration will continue to focus on deporting these illegal alien gang members and criminals from our nation's interior and enforcing our country's immigration laws. That's what the president was reelected to do. And I would add that the overwhelming majority of Americans continue to support the deportation of illegal criminals. A recent CBS poll showed that 89% of the American people support deporting illegal criminals from our homeland. So the president will continue to do that while Democrats continue to trip over themselves while ignoring American citizens whose lives have been forever impacted by the actions and the crimes of these illegal criminals, like Patty Morin, who we were so honored to have at the White House to share her daughter's story just last week. Senator Van Hollen has never called her, has never reached out to her family, yet he has spent hours now fawning over this illegal alien who is tied to a vicious gang that has taken.
Tom Homan exposes Van Hollen's treasonous trip. While Americans die from fentanyl, trafficking explodes, and angel parents weep. This Democrat flies to meet an MS-13 terrorist on your tax dollars. This guy never even visited the border under Biden.
Senator Van Hollen has obviously got a chance to meet with him, but he had to travel to El Salvador to get any information. Does that concern you at all? I mean, these are people sent by the United, I mean, in his case, sent by the United States, and not even a U.S. senator could get any information about his whereabouts or the condition of his incarceration without actually going down and making the trip to El Salvador himself?
Well, he obviously knew his whereabouts because he went there to see him. But you know what bothers me more than that is a U.S. senator traveled to El Salvador on taxpayer dime to meet with an MS-13 gang member, public safety threat terrorist. I mean, in the meantime, the day before he traveled, an illegal alien was arrested for murder, released to the streets rather than honoring an ICE detainer in his very own state. What concerns me is Van Hollen never went to the border the last 4 years on Joe Biden when he had a 600% increase in sex trafficking in women and children. You have a record number of no-inspected terrorists crossing that border. You had 250,000 Americans die from fentanyl overdose because of the open border. You got over 4,000 illegal aliens died making that journey, which is a historic record. What shocks me is he's remained silent on the travesty that happened on our southern border. Many people died. Thousands of people died. I met with hundreds of angel moms and dads who buried their children that were murdered by illegal alien. How many angel moms and dads has he met in the state of Maryland? That's what concerns me.
Senator Van Hollen.
None exactly. The mockery of America continues. Fox host Troy Van Halen for just flying to El Salvador to help MS-13 gang members. Here's Gutfeld.
I love Tyrus that this guy Van Halen, what's his name, Van Hollen? He's no Van Halen. No. He's not even
Sammy Hagar Van Halen.
Yes, he's Sam. I was going to say the guy from the guy from Extreme was in.
Even worse Van Halen.
Yes.
Gary Chacon did an admirable job.
Thank you. By the way, you're right. Where was I? Now, that thing, he flies out of it. He thinks he's doing like this amazing thing. In the air, all the news comes out, this dude's a wife beater.
Yeah.
And Cory Booker's like, thank God I didn't drive to the airport yet.
You know, the funny part is that he's going to El Salvador to tell them that they're wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then you're going to have to call the White House to get your jailed ass home. That ought to be a fun... I would love to be like, let me answer the phones that night. Hello? Oh, I'll have to put you on hold. Yeah. That's the problem with dumb people.
Yeah.
No, seriously. It's like they're dumb, and we know they're dumb. But the problem is they don't know they're dumb because they're dumb.
Yes.
Well, and by the way, speaking of that lack of intelligence, they're playing in Trump's lane here, right? I mean, this issue by far is his strongest issue. All the polling shows us that, right? It was the foundational pillar of his election last November. Why do they continue to play in his lane, right, where he's strongest? Which just shows you how
Well, it goes back to, and I've been on this conspiracy thing about why they're so upset about Doge, and I think this guy falls into it. As the corruption for the last 4 years, there was a shadow group running the government. There was a small percentage that kept picking things that didn't make sense to us. There were 20% on everything because that's where the embezzlement comes from and the money comes from. I think they're trying to make an example out of him. So when it comes to them, when we see congressmen being arrested for embezzlement, they're going to say, "Oh, they're deporting us. They're taking us like they did. They're disappearing." Yeah. No, you got a warrant, bruh.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But again, it goes back to my first point. Dumb.
Yeah,
Dumb as rocks. Facts don't care about liberal tears. This MS-13 animal had full due process with asylum hearing that was rejected. Trump promised to rid America of gang members, murderers, and rapists, and he's keeping that promise. The left hates when Trump delivers on his word. Here he is attempting to defend himself on CNN with Dana Bash.
I actually, if you look at this, it's very interesting when people talk about the fact that this illegal alien, who is not a resident of the U.S., he is a citizen of El Salvador, actually did have due process in an asylum hearing where his request for asylum was rejected. The Trump administration, as part of the promise that they made during the campaign, President Trump made it very clear. I'm going to get rid of the gang members, the murderers, the rapists, the terrorists, and this is part of that process in keeping that campaign promise, and I think they're doing a good job at it. Actually, if you look at this, it's very interesting when people talk about the fact that...
Yeah, keep trying. More disgusting betrayal. Senator Van Hollen ignored constituent Rachel Morin, who was murdered by an illegal alien but flew across the globe for an MS-13 gang member.
Here in the United States, hit Van Hollen. Rachel Morin was a constituent of his who was murdered, and he didn't call her mother. He did not do this level of outreach, but for a man who was illegally here in the United States, he is pouring over himself, flying abroad to make sure that this man is taken care of. But his actual constituents, the citizens of the United States, those people didn't matter to him. So Republicans will continue to win this argument because Van Hollen and Democrats just don't get it.
Well, I actually, no, I think it's a great story if you're saying people grabbed off the street without...
Oh, sure. Checkmate. Liberals, El Salvador President Bukele pulled off the greatest political trap of all time. Let Van Hollen meet with MS-13 member, then exposed the margarita sipping photo op that destroyed the Democrat narrative. Listen.
To meet up, Ladies and gentlemen, El Salvador President Nayib Bukele might have just pulled off one of the craziest political maneuvers of all time. You see, as many of you know, Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen has flown down to El Salvador in an attempt to meet up with this recently deported MS-13 gang member, Kilmar Garcia. And so you know what? El Salvador President Bukele let him do it. He let them meet up, just not for the reasons that the Democrats were hoping for. You see, the Democrat narrative for weeks now has been that Kilmar Abrego Garcia, an illegal immigrant who was deported under President Trump's America First deportation policies, is being held in some sort of third world death camp where he's being tortured, starved, and mistreated. And so Democratic Senator Van Hollen flew all the way down to El Salvador to expose the truth. And so what did President Bukele do in response? He called their bluff and exposed the Democrats for the absolute idiots that they are. He let Democratic Senator Van Hollen meet face-to-face with Kilmar Garcia, and then he absolutely humiliated the Democrats in front of the entire world. You see, after their meeting, Bukele took to Twitter and posted, Kilmar Abrego Garcia miraculously risen from the death camps and torture, now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in the tropical paradise of El Salvador. Folks, you can't make this up. You literally could not write a script better than this. But folks, then President Bukele went on an absolute Twitter tirade. Take a look at this. First, President Bukele retweeted a post saying, imagine if Democrat senators cared about Americans as much as they do foreign gang members who spent a few years in the U.S. And then he retweeted another post that said, Democrat Senator Chris Van Hollen is now sipping margaritas with alleged wife-beater and MS-13 gang member Kilmar Garcia in El Salvador. And then, finally, Bukele himself posted a status saying, I love chess. Then he retweeted another post saying, checkmate. Folks, that's right. This entire situation was a setup designed to make the Democrats look like the anti-American traitors that they actually are. President Bukele baited Van Hollen into coming down to El Salvador, let him take the photo op with the MS-13 gang member, and then used that very same photo op to absolutely eviscerate the Democrat narrative. And now, you know what? Take a look at what Stephen Miller had to say about all of this.
Sean, we've reached a point in American politics where we have one party led by President Donald Trump that fights for Americans, and a second party, I guess led by AOC, that fights for illegal aliens. But not just illegal aliens, criminal, wife-beating, terrorist illegal aliens. Two immigration judges, as you said, found that he was a member of MS-13, added the arresting police department here nearby in Prince George's County. On top of that, we have, of course, the protective order filed by his wife, alleging horrific, multiple instances.
There were two.
Yes, of extreme, violent, physical abuse. And then on top of all of that, he's an illegal alien and a member of what has been designated as a foreign terrorist organization. You have the entire...
The America First agenda has been unleashed. Trump vowed to deport illegal criminals and violent gang members, and he's doing it. And Democrats think they can bring this foreign terrorist back. Never happening. Here is the press secretary.
So to the Democrats, the president swore to the American public he was going to deport illegal criminals, and especially those who have been involved in violent gangs like MS-13 that have terrorized American communities. And so to the Democrat Party, who thinks that they are going to bring this foreign terrorist back to the United States of America to live a peaceful and happy life, that is never going to happen. Not only is this an MS-13 gang member, but he is also an illegal alien who broke our nation's laws to come here. And not only is it a slap in the face to the American citizens whose lives who have been put in danger or in many cases lost at the hands of these illegal alien criminal gang members, but it's also a slap in the face to the millions of legal immigrants who came to our country the right way, waited their turn, and paid their dues. We have a legal immigration system for a reason. The president is going to continue to uphold that.
Follow the money. Confirmed Van Hollen's trip to visit MS-13 terrorists was on your dime.
Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip.
Who did?
Another truth bomb. Over 4,000 illegals died crossing the border, and more, all while Senator Van Hollen remains silent, but he jumps on a plane for one animal.
Terrorists. What bothers me more than that is a U.S. Senator traveled to El Salvador on taxpayer dime to meet with an MS-13 gang member, public safety threat terrorist. I mean, in the meantime, the day before he traveled, an illegal alien was arrested for murder, released to the streets rather than honoring an ICE detainer in his very own state. What concerns me is Van Hollen never went to the border the last 4 years on Joe Biden when he had a 600% increase in sex trafficking of women and children. You have a record number of no-inspected terrorists crossing that border. You had 250,000 Americans die from fentanyl overdose because of the open border. You got over 4,000 illegal aliens died making that journey, which is a historic record. What shocks me is he's remained silent on the travesty that happened on our southern border. Many people died. Thousands of people died. I've met with hundreds of angel moms and dads who buried their children that were murdered by an illegal alien. How many angel moms and dads has he met in the state of Maryland? That's what concerns me. What bothers me.
Here's another reality check. Oh my, I can't even go there. Okay, so talk about the tattoos. The left claims it's just tattoos. Border experts schooling the liberal media. The tattoos are one of many factors used to identify gang members. Yes, he has MS-13 tattooed across his knuckles. Here's Tom Homan on ABC This Week.
Gang member? No.
I mean, you acknowledge tattoos are part of the calculation here. I mean, you might have a tattoo.
There's one factor out of many factors. I worked. Have you been an alien gang squad? Because I have. Tattoos are one of many factors that's going to determine someone's gang. It's not the only one. You can't say, okay, tattoo gang member. No, there's other indicia that's added to that tattoo. Tattoo is one factor that adds to other factors that makes that determination. What I'm saying is you can't ignore a tattoo. That's one more factor that leads you to believe maybe he's a gang member. It's just not based on tattoos. It's based on a lot of other things, but tattoo's one of many. But no one's removed just because of a tattoo.
In other words, you acknowledge tattoo.
His wife has been covering up the tattoos on social media posts. And now we have this. Here's Tucker Carlson with the El Salvadorian president. A satanic connection confirmed. El Salvador president exposes the demonic truth about MS-13, that they perform satanic rituals. Oh my goodness. I don't even know if I can play this.
Salvador. MS-13 is one of the major gangs.
And they are satanic also.
That was my question. So very
I'm
little.
sorry.
No, but I would hope you will explain it because very little has been written in the West about this.
They're satanic, yes.
But actually, literally, can you explain?
Well, they didn't start as a satanic organization. MS-13 started in Los Angeles, in the U.S., because Salvadorans weren't allowed to sell drugs by the Mexican gangs. So they created a gang that was called the 18th Street Gang, because they basically wanted to sell drugs in a street that was 18th Street over there. But then division started they started dividing themselves and started infighting, so they created the MS-13. And then the MS-13 started outgrowing the other gangs, and they started exporting the organization to other parts of the U.S. And when Bill Clinton decided to deport those guys, he didn't tell our government at the time, I'm deporting this criminal. They just, send them here. And they came, there were few, but unchecked. At the same time, some laws were passed to protect minors from imprisonment. And of course, the gangs used that to recruit 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds. So at the beginning it was, some youth causing harm, assaulting, trying to control their territory, selling drugs, things that are bad, but probably not critical. But they grew, and they started controlling territories. A few years later, they were actually a huge international criminal organization that they have bases in Italy, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, the U.S. Basically, a lot of major cities in the U.S. will have strongholds of.
Right outside Washington, D.C.
Yes, of course.
And here we have, in real time, CNN commentator admits that Van Hollen is losing by sipping margaritas with an MS-13 gangbanger.
Gangbanger.
Yeah, listening to Van Hollen explain all this, like if you're explaining how you came to be sipping margaritas with an MS-13 gangbanger who's lived illegally in the United States for 14 years before he was finally deported, you're losing, okay? You're losing. You're losing optically, you're losing politically, and I assume that people of Maryland are wondering, why doesn't this guy ever work as hard for us as he does for this guy who's down in El Salvador, which, by the way, is where he's from in the first place? Look, you know, the Trump administration has a legal point of view. They're going to keep working this, you know, through these different court cases. I think, you know, macro view for me, the American people elected Donald Trump to deport illegal aliens. They especially elected him to deport people who are affiliated with very violent transnational gangs that we now characterize as terrorist organizations. I think he's doing his job, and I think the American people are behind him, and I think the Democrats like Van Hollen look ridiculous standing up for him more than they stand up for the people of the United States of America who are actually citizens of this country. And
now, if you don't know what he's talking about with respect to the defending Margarita Gate, here he is at a press conference. It's a total disaster. Caught in Margarita Gate with a deported wife-beating man in El Salvador. He's getting roasted by millions now. The posts are all over social media. And here's one of the pictures people are posting. And I should also point out, here's the photograph that Donald Trump posted. Very clear, you can see on his knuckles, MS-13. So he's got no problem bragging about it on his own body. But, of course, the left wants to defend this man, and Van Hollen holding a press conference to do the same. Listen to how he goes into great detail about the salt on the rim of the glass and the amount of fluid in each person's glass. I mean, he goes into great detail in an attempt to debunk this photo op. Regardless, he was there. And now he has to defend his actions that were paid for on the taxpayer dime. Listen.
Some coffee. Now I just want to take a moment. I hadn't planned to do this, but as I was landing on the airplane, I got a transcript of some questions President Trump was asked at the White House today about what I would call Margarita Gate. I don't know if you guys have been following this, but President Bukele, you know, after I met with Kilmar, did this tweet showing us at a table with these two glasses. So here's what happened. When I first sat down with Kilmar, we just had glasses of water on the table. I think maybe some coffee. And as we were talking, one of the government people came over and deposited two other glasses on the table with ice, and I don't know if it was salt or sugar around the top, but they look like margaritas. And if you look at the one they put in front of Kilmar, it actually had a little less liquid than the one in front of me, to try to make it look, I assume, like he drank out of it. Let me just be very clear. Neither of us touched the drinks that were in front of us. And if you want to play a little Sherlock Holmes, I'll tell you how you can know that. So if you look at the video or the picture I sent out from the beginning of our meeting, you'll see there are no glasses on the table. So you'll see in later videos they are on the table. But they made a little mistake. For some people are very careful, right? If you sip out of one of those glasses, some of whatever it was, salt or sugar, would disappear. You would see a gap. There's no gap. Nobody drank any margaritas or sugar water or whatever it is. But this is a lesson into the lengths that President Bukele will do to deceive people about what's going on. And it's also shows the lengths that the Trump administration and the president will go to, because when he was asked about a reporter about this, he just went along for the ride.
It also shows the lengths you will go to defend criminal international terrorists. So let's be crystal clear about what happened here. A United States Senator used your tax dollars to fly to El Salvador, not to address the fentanyl crisis, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans, not to meet with angel families who've lost loved ones to illegal alien crime, but to advocate for an MS-13 gang member who was legally deported after receiving full due process. And he got played like a fiddle by El Salvador's President Bukele, who allowed the photo op, then exposed it to the world with a simple message: I love chess. Now, the lines couldn't be clearer. President Trump is prioritizing American safety and American lives. Democrats are prioritizing foreign criminals with gang tattoos. So ask yourself, when did the Democrat Party start putting MS-13 animals above American citizens, and why do they seem so shocked when they lose elections? Drop a comment below and make sure you support The Real News by going down to the link in the description, shop.nextnewsnetwork.com, and buying some Next News swag.